Are we heading for World War III? Welcome to Mark and Pete. As tensions rise in the Middle East, it's looking like, well, is it possible that we might actually be heading for World War III this time? This is Mark and Pete, two blokes with half an opinion. Now, here's our first thought.
When your number's up. Once there was World War I, but sadly all the folk have gone. Then came along World War II, and now there are very few. Yet if there was World War III, it would affect you and me. Then all the people would be no more, so there'd be no need for World War IV. Yes, well, it does seem that some people are whipping up the frenzy of World War III. Is it in the hands of Donald Trump? Now, he has said that Iran wants to make a deal rather than face US military action. Now, as we've seen history learn from it, as we've seen from World War I with the triggering of, the shooting of King Archduke Ferdinand, and then suddenly many other countries started to get involved. Have you seen a similar pattern? Mr. Pete, I ask you, are we going through this domino effect once again? Are we going into World War III?
Now, can I, Mr. Mark, say at the outset, I hope not. Because although people have pointed out that it makes great content for shows like ours, but at what cost, Mark? What cost? But no,
Quite.
I think, and just looking at the strategy that it appears that Donald Trump and his team are pursuing, that isn't what's happening. Isn't what's going to happen. In that they haven't rushed in, they have instead, despite provocation from Iran, despite them threatening to assassinate Donald Trump and to attack, despite all the rhetoric, despite actually going ahead and killing lots of the protesters, I use the word despite again, but despite what Donald Trump had said about that they shouldn't do that, or there would be reprisals from the US. They appear to be playing it cautiously in that they're getting on their side other interested nations in the region. Specifically, Saudi Arabia, the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia, is signaling on social media that, is sort of paraphrasing what he said in social media, he has been talking with United States of America think tanks and advisors about the strategy for peace in the Middle East. Now, this was a change when he was totally against any US involvement earlier. So that's looking like, along with the announcement that there's going to be a sale of certain military items, I think it was $7 billion worth, was announced from recently over the past few days. It just seemed that the Saudi Arabia's on board. All we need is the UAE to be on board. Hopefully they are. And you've got a position where if you attack Iran, they won't really be able to respond, if you being the United States, which puts you in a position to make them negotiate. So that's my reading on it. What do you think, Mr. Mark?
Well, I think what's interesting is listening to the rhetoric of Donald Trump, because he's a key component here. He's already
Sure.
warned Tehran that they are running out of time to negotiate what is called a nuclear program deal.
Yeah.
And there are concerns of Iran having nuclear weapons. Now, of course, no surprise, Iran has denied that there's anything sinister. But
Yeah.
here's the point. What we're starting to see is this domino dynamic effect, which is Iran are in conversations, of course, with Russia. And that means bringing in the other equation of, yes, Mr. Vladimir Putin. Now, of course, we know that we're not party to all of those conversations, but, if Mr. Putin wants to come along to the Mark and Pete show, it would be great. But
Yes,
the fact
absolutely.
is,
Yeah.
we know that the game has changed. We talked about it at the beginning, World War One. Well, the players were very different. World War Two, guess what? The players were different. The different power dynamics have shifted. When you look at where we are today, I think it's reasonable to say, Mr. Pete, that some of those big influencers, whether it be the United Kingdom, Canada, and others, that Commonwealth footprint that we once had, is no longer in the equation to make a difference. And I think one of the concerns is what is going on in the head of Vladimir Putin and, ironically, Donald Trump, because we're seeing things playing out like this horrible little chess game that's going on. Is it really genuinely about the concerns over nuclear weapons? Or maybe is it something
No,
else? We've seen that
no.
Donald Trump has already raised points about wanting to own, Greenland and
Yeah.
many other
I,
different things. Is there something else behind all
well,
of this?
well. So my reading on it is this: in terms of the current rhetoric, um, I think it was a concern about developing nuclear weapons previously. I think that's been dealt with for some time by the bombing attack that the United States performed along with Israel. And I think I think that the point now is if Donald Trump politically, if he makes it about the nuclear weapons rather than the uprising, supporting the uprising, he's in a good position politically at home, in that he's not trying to intervene in another country, so that maybe bring the MAGA base along with him, and also not have to declare war, which of course requires approval in Congress, which he may not
Oh,
get.
yeah.
So this, in other words, it's just it's a military action on a security issue. So he could justify it in that way. Uh, but I think in terms of it not causing a conflagration and spreading into World War III, this is also a good move because it seems like the aim is to bring tensions down. We want to remove these weapons of mass destruction, to use an unfortunate term, being on the table, and then we stop. If there is a regime change, that's down to the people within Iran. Of course, the hope is that it does precipitate it and allow it to happen.
Well,
But I think I think you see that although it could all blow up, it could get out of
literally.
hands. Uh, it does seem that the Department of War, the Secretary of State, and Trump himself are trying to play this in a way that is least likely to result in that. As far as Putin's concerned, it doesn't seem to me that he wants to get involved. Um, Trump has signaled time and time again that he's into the keeping the hemispheres separate, what used to be called the Monroe Doctrine. People are starting to call it the Don Roe Doctrine because of Trump, in that America is responsible for things in its sphere of influence, and Russia in its half of the world, and they don't interfere with each other. Now, the other player in this is, of course, China, but this is my personal view. I guess I could be proved wrong. I don't think they have the reach and power that they claim. They have a lot of financial clout buying up countries like Mauritius. That's another story. Um, and supply, providing supplies for Iran, which they did recently. They sent ships over to provide supplies. But I don't think they have the military power anywhere near what America has. I don't think that they're a big player here.
Well, one of the other things that has been cited around this sort of tensions in the Middle East is, yes, about nuclear, but also about stop killing protesters. So
Yes,
one of the things that human-based or human rights-based agencies and charity-based organizations have highlighted that many people, hundreds, if not thousands of people, have been killed simply because they've been protesting. Now, Donald Trump has brought this to attention, and he's made that clear that well, that's one of the other reasons why he believes that this is another reason for action. So that's quite a different basis in itself. I mean, on the one hand, there's territorial advantage, there's economic and political power pushing and pulling. But on the human rights side, it's interesting that Donald Trump has brought this up. Just before we sort of close out, what's your thoughts in terms of the human rights, where people in Iran genuinely actually want regime change because they just want democracy, which they do not have?
my thoughts on that is yes, we want to support that, but this is the issue that you need to be careful about because think about what you want to support. You want to support people basically taking back the control of their own country. But if you send in troops and take over the country, they're no longer involved. You're an invading army. You're a country taking over another person's country, and then the people might turn against you. It gets very, very complicated, and America has suffered from that many times in the
Yes.
past. in recent history. So they need to be very careful not to do that. And there's no sign that Donald Trump is going to send in troops to run the place. Even when he said he was running a country recently, when they took out Maduro in Venezuela, what he meant was they run it in that we tell you what to do, or we'll kill more people, or take your leaders again. That's the
Yeah.
it's done by coercion, and I believe that is the only way. I can't If you actually go in and take over the country, it's not going to end well, because that's not people taking back their country. So
Yeah.
it's a difficult balancing act. If
Well,
anyone can do it, I think Donald Trump can. As regular listeners will know, we're big fans on this show. But,
yes, we are.
well, we're big fans of everyone we talk about, that's the thing. But, yeah, Donald Trump has this particular skill of negotiating with his advisors, of course. But he has what might be called the chutzpah, or giant balls, or whatever you might call it, in that he can take these tough decisions, but also he's prepared to wait until the right scenario arrives. So
Yes.
I'm not looking at it being World War III soon. I don't see the tensions rising because of Donald Trump. I see he's really one of the few people who could thread the needle and actually get a regime change without them having to take over and thus make things worse, as they've done in the past. I think
Well,
that he
there we
will,
go.
in fact, walk away from it rather than do that.
Well, interesting, even though there are military movements from Donald Trump, the US, etc. But to your point, there is some diplomacy in there. Maybe it's not so much World War III, maybe World War II and a half.